people one more minute, and then I'll let Kathy lead us through some announcements. Kathy, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Yep.
Great. So we have got a great lineup for coffee chats for this summer. We're calling it New Ideas for Gleaning Fundamentals. So coming out of the symposium, we've been asked to focus on let's get back to basics, engaging with farmers, working with volunteers, and development, or AKA fundraising. And so I've been able to put together a panel of your peers that are doing some of these things really, really well. Sean and I have started our Gleaning Census interviews, and it is amazing the work that people are doing that they are sharing with us. So, in the June coffee chat, we've got Jacob Beck and Allison Levin, and they're going to talk about how they are working to increase the number of farmers that they're working with and showing appreciation to those farmers to keep them retained. And then in July, Kara, Kristen, and Ed are going to talk about unique ways that they're working to diversify their volunteer base. And then in August, we're going to talk about development. And Jamie and Lisa are going to share their best practices for grant writing, including a quick recap of Lisa's session from the symposium on using AI to write grants. So mark your calendars, make sure that you can attend because I think we've got some wonderful things that your peers can share with you. Next slide, Sean.
There you go.
And don't forget, if you haven't already done it, that we are in the middle of our gleaning census. And so Sean and I are looking to interview 150 gleaning organizations, and we're just getting started. So make sure that your organization has the opportunity to fill out the gleaning census questionnaire, which I can send the links. I'll put those in the chat as we're starting and also schedule your interview. And in completing these first two steps, number one, it's going to help us get more information about gleaning as a movement, where we stand, because the last time we did this was 2020, so we're updating that. And number two, this makes your organization eligible to participate in the SARE measurement project. And I know we're all getting ready for harvest season. So next slide, we'll talk quickly about the SARE measurement project that's getting underway. Oh,
Nope. I clicked on a link. Sorry, Kathy.
no, wrong one. But this is where you go to schedule your appointment with Sean and I.
All right, now the thing's in the way, so now I can't
Oh,
really
I
move.
know, what a hassle. So anyway,
All
I
right.
can speak to it. So there's the census, and the next one should be, there we go, the SARE measurement project. So this is a great way for your organization to earn some much needed money. I know so many of us are experiencing funding cuts. And so your organization can earn up to $100 for each data set collected in urban fruit tree gleans, $200 for each data set collected on one crop on a commercial farm, and $250 for two crops. And so we've got, listen to this, $500,000 to distribute. So we want to make sure that that all goes out to you. We definitely don't want to leave federal funding on the table. So when you're ready to participate, you complete the gleaning census, you complete your interview, watch the training, and get ready for harvest season where you can start earning some money by doing some simple simple-ish measurements out in the field. So if you have questions about this, Sean and I are happy to field some questions, and I'm going to put all those links in the chat. Thank you.
Well, thanks all. And we know that it's not a lot of money, a few $100s per glean, but it does really add up. There's a chance for a couple $1,000s every month to go into your all's pockets. That may increase if we are able to provide more funding, but at this moment you can do this twice every week. So um, there's a significant chance to put some much needed revenue back into the gleaning world, and we're excited about that, and we're really excited about the data and the story it's going to be able to tell. So thank you. I'm excited to talk through the 2025 symposium with you all. I thought about how to do this, some video clips or what to do, but I decided I'm just going to share some of my thoughts that came away from it. It was really fun to review all of these. I don't find myself listening to many of the presentations at the actual symposium because I'm always bouncing back and forth and wanting to make sure everything goes well. So, this last couple weeks have been kind of my symposium as I've in my spare time been watching so many of the presentations, and they were just all such great quality. If you're at the symposium, let's just popcorn for just a second. What was your favorite part, or what's something you guys took away? I see a lot of faces here who are there, so if you want to unmute and share something you liked, please do.
I can speak up. It was an amazing event. It was obviously just so wonderful. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm Sarah. Hi. At Harvest Against Hunger in Seattle, Washington. Yes, it was such a great event. Actually, I see a lot of you guys that I saw there. Hello. It was amazing. It was wonderful and inspiring to get a chance to meet everybody and see what work they're doing. And there was so much great content. I won't go over all of it if you guys also want to share stuff, but so inspiring. Like my brain is still processing from all of it, and yeah, highly enthusiastic response here.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else have a favorite part they want to share or a takeaway that they've been thinking about over the last few weeks?
I can go. Hi, yeah, I'm Allison. I'm from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We had a New England gathering kind of to kick it off, which was really nice. Although many of us are New England states are not big, we don't get together often. So that was a nice opportunity to meet people we maybe have, connected with just virtually or emailed with. So, and we talked about keeping that momentum going. So looking forward to that as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
I just really liked seeing how different all of the organizations were.
Ann Miller.
Yes.
I think Barbara's saying introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ann Miller, Community Harvest, SRQ, Sarasota, Florida. It's just, gleaning is one part of what we do. And it was so wonderful to see how the different organizations around the country did gleaning in different ways and what that meant. Some were gleaning and food banking, some were growing and gleaning from their own locations. And it was just wonderful to see and learn how everybody does it differently.
I'm Brienne with Farm Fresh. And going off of what Anne said, I think the roundtables really gave us an opportunity to learn more in depth about other gleaning organizations and what everybody was doing in regards to volunteers or platforms that we were using. So I really enjoyed the roundtable discussions.
I'm Brendan. I'm from Spokane, Washington on the the West Coast, and I'm rather new to gleaning as gleaning organizations in general. And so for me, it was incredibly helpful just to get a lay of the land of what it might look like to be doing this and to be around people that have been doing it for much longer than I have. That was incredibly valuable to me, and has since been helping me as I've kind of jumped into a lot of new things. So I'm very grateful for that.
Hi, I can jump in there. I got on the Zoom a few minutes late. Some things came up at work. But I'm assuming we're doing introductions and
We're
talking
just
about
we're
our.
just sharing something we liked from the symposium if we attended as well. So
Okay, great. Yeah. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I'm Gina Hudson, in Iowa City, Iowa, with Table to Table, and had a great time at the symposium connecting with different gleaning organizations. That was, my favorite part is like we talked about there, not having to explain what it is and what we do, and really being able to connect with others about gleaning and learn from others. And I really enjoyed learning how different organizations of different sizes are able to accomplish what they are doing, how they're growing in their capacities. And this is very new to me, so I was really interested in learning, like from Rachel's table, how they are working with so many larger groups. I'm interested in developing on that, learning on that, and with Food Forward, how they're able to find individuals to lead gleans. Since our capacity is lessened with some of the things we've all been dealing with the cuts, how can we still continue to grow? So really learning from all the different organizations of different sizes that are so successful in what they're doing.
I'll call on Barbara. Barbara Eisworth, Iskashita Refugee Network, Tucson, Arizona. I was thrilled to have 3 people from my organization there. So thank you, Ago, for helping Laura be able to present about storytelling. I didn't realize ahead of time that the whole thing had a storytelling theme going through it. So that was special. But I really enjoyed the Farm Fresh tour, which was not on the schedule. Enjoyed the pickling event and activity, just to see somebody else's commercial kitchen and the proper equipment to be used for canning and pickling and fermenting. Yeah. And I enjoyed meeting my Rwandan friend at the farm. Okay, so I enjoyed everything. Do I get to pick on somebody? Tom.
Caught me right in the middle of my lunch. I'm chew. But thanks. No, it was wonderful experience for me. Just being around all you guys. It was just great and inspiring. And as a sort of like a added bonus, I was able to listen to Sean's training session on the SARE grant. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've completed the training as an added benefit. So that was pretty cool. And then I was able to, the story, like Barbara said, I didn't process the fact that storytelling was going to be such a significant part of the whole symposium. And that was very, very helpful to me because I've been doing some, developing some podcasts. In fact, I've shared an example of a podcast with Sean. And then I met Kathy's Casey. And that was a surprise too, because he's like a pro in this whole area. So that was like another added benefit because I was able to interact, and I've interacted with Casey since then. And so it's really good. I'm involved in another organization that is trying to help its members build what what they refer to as power. And it's the power that comes from working one with another. And it's a power that's based on identifying shared vision and values. And so I'm getting training on that aspect of my current life situation. And then so I go to AGO symposium, and we're all really all about the mission of feeding people in need and helping farmers. And so I relate now to that concept of power, that if we work together, we're much more powerful than if we're off on our own. So I'm kind of still processing the symposium and for doing some follow-ups. And thank you guys for making it possible for me to attend. And Barbara, I'm going to get even with you someday, girl, for calling on me.
Tom, this is the part where
feel-
you call on someone.
Oh,
I was just gonna end it. I was
yeah,
gonna
I
end it
didn't.
actually.
What do you mean?
Okay.
Not
We weren't
everybody
calling on
talks.
people, we were popcorning, Barbara.
Yeah,
But
that's what. Oh, popcorning. It's not calling.
yeah, I mean, I guess you
Whoops.
sometimes do call on people
Okay, my
popcorning. So,
popcorn has salt on it. Sorry.
well, thank you guys all so much for taking a minute to share. It's so inspiring to hear what you guys took away from the event, and the things that you guys learned from it. It helps motivate us as we build these out. So we did something different this year. Uh, we tried to do some mini tracks, as many of you mentioned. Storytelling was the main track. In past years, we've like done a general gleaning session and then one track that was more themed. This year, we decided to do some smaller themed tracks with some discussion groups in there, and then peppered it in with a bunch of really great presentations about different people's organizations or one-off type things. I'm not going to have time today to talk about everything that was shared at the symposium. Surprise, surprise, I can't fit 2 days worth of programming into 40 minutes. But I did want to talk a little bit about the different tracks that we offered, some of my takeaways from it, and then hear what your takeaways from those individual tracks were. And hopefully this inspires you to go watch the recordings. The recordings, I believe, are all up on our website now. Um, I'll defer to Kathy if that's
Yes.
happened, but they are all ready to go up. So yep, they're all up there. They're all ready for you guys to go and listen to and dive in. And I know you're going to get super busy, or maybe are already super busy as the gleaning seasons kick off. But I hope you find a way to work them in and listen to them in different ways throughout the season, and they continue to inspire you. So we did 4 mini tracks. One was a storytelling track, which was our largest, with our keynote and 4 workshops, and then a discussion group. We did a fundraising mini track with a workshop and discussion group, and then we did a volunteer management track with a couple workshops and discussion groups. And then we also launched the SARE and a couple of different workshops. So and the SARE project. So that's where we're at. Let's start with the storytelling. I felt like you might have noticed at our symposium there were several AI sections, not EI, as we tried to, I think we tried to build this event to not only meet the needs of the challenging funding time that you are all in, they're all experiencing, and as we yeah, navigate the realities of this administration and that might have on our communities and our work. But we also wanted to ground it in, this growing change to nonprofit fundraising that's happening with AI and nonprofit storytelling with AI. And I thought a nice way to kick this off was a little AI generated video that Casey put together with us. So we're going to start there, and then we'll.
We don't have the sound.
Oh, hold on. Hold on, guys. I shared in the wrong way and I meant to fix it, and then I didn't.
While Sean's working on that, I have put all the links in the chat.
I hope you got sound
That
now.
was one for the compost bin of glory. From veggie rassicas to real talk on food justice. This year's International Gleaning Symposium was, dare I say, ripe with inspiration. I may be slightly bruised, but my heart, fully full. Let's stay juicy and focused, folks.
I've seen workshops, field trips, and cabbage-powered innovation, but nothing beats rolling up your leafy sleeves with the Glean Dream Team. Providence, darling, you fed my soul and my sass.
Penguins don't usually do humidity, but for this, I'd protest in a heat wave. From Urban Edge Farm to the ghost tours and milkshake things they call coffee cabinets, I'm all in. And that veggie derby, you haven't lived until you've seen a fennel fuel drag race.
Thank you for showing up, with your hearts, your hands, and your harvest hats.
We came together, we connected, we composted. It's not just about food, it's about feeding justice.
So don't chill out now, stay loud, stay leafy, and keep feeding the movement, one rescued radish at a time.
Until next time, glean on, good people.
Not gonna be able to skip that slide.
Oh,
Here we go. Here we go. So yeah, we had a significant portion of the symposium that was very much storytelling themed. As you saw there from that little snippet, Casey walked us through this idea of storytelling with digital tools using AI, and helped us understand, like, how do we use these simple tools to better tell our stories? And then I encourage you to go watch his presentation to learn how to use those kind of tools. Barbara and her team at Ishkashika walked us through storytelling, and gave us a ton of tools for using, to tell powerful stories. Data plus stories equal power. Remind us we need to tell our stories because someone's always telling those stories. And I think one of my key takeaways from that was using our community and the people who actually benefit from our services to tell the story. And that was probably, the takeaway that I chose to grab from there. And then we had David from up in Maine sharing about how do we change this gleaning equation. And, he shared this idea of what we track affects the work we do. And are we tracking and measuring the right thing? He, encouraged us to, again, think about the power of stories. So at the beginning to set the scene with a time and place and introduce the hero, this middle idea of a story. Actually, yeah. And how does this sort of transform the lessons that we've learned and bringing it back to our mission? And asking our audience to help with that hero story. And all of that, led to this last piece, which was mapping joy in the food system. Like, I think for me, the takeaway from that last piece was, the shared interpretation on how the world works, and telling the story in a different way. And all of these pieces really came together to remind us to share our stories. We asked you guys to share your stories with us in some video recordings, and we were just talking about how we're going to use those just before this call started. So we're excited to see how that goes. And I'm wondering, as all of you thought about the storytelling piece, if you were there, if you'd had a chance to watch online or attend, was there anything else about storytelling that really stuck out or stood out to you as individuals, and that you would like to share with the group?
I also wanted to shout out to Brandis, who did a great job in filming her local partners. That was a great film that you shared with us, Brandis. So thanks for that.
That's really a real world example of
Yeah.
storytelling, and
I
I
didn't even
definitely
know the
almost say
theme.
now,
I know.
I did. So I knew when I was picking it, that was a great example of storytelling. And I think, there's so many presentations that we're not going to talk about today here. So I apologize in advance. But yeah, I think that was a great example of storytelling. Thanks for sharing that, Brandon.
Yeah, I need to post it on my LinkedIn. I'm so inactive on there. And can I join, Barbara, can I join the WhatsApp? I don't know if I've been okay.
Yeah, it's that I came back from Rhode Island, then immediately went on another trip, and I am behind. I apologize.
So it's okay. I'm glad you're traveling.
So I just wanted to interject here. This coffee chat and my experiences yesterday with 10 people, global service learning from Nebraska Wesleyan, the joy of the food system. And we have an opportunity here to connect people back to the food system, because they are disconnected, unconnected, never been connected before. Just 10 college students, and de-seeding poppy seeds. You never saw the faces of folks that thought, oh my God, poppy seed muffins, poppy seed bread, had no clue where the poppy seeds come from. So just another example. And we have lots of refugee examples of the disconnect that comes when they come to this country and how we reconnect them. So that's a whole story. And Laura's not even on this Zoom call. So there. But thank you for the inspiration today.
Barbara, you were just talking about how not many people know where poppy seeds come from and how there's such a disconnect. I had somebody at a market that we did, I think now it's like 2 years ago, and she pointed to a crate of carrots and it had carrot tops on it. And she asked me what that was. And I would say she was early 30s. She had no idea it was a carrot. So yeah, you're right. There is a disconnect.
Yeah, that connecting people to the food system definitely could have been a theme of this symposium. I'll talk a little bit more about it when I talk about the volunteer section. It came up a lot there. But in that idea Barbara mentioned about connecting them to the joy of the food system, I love that presentation by Shannon and her team, the folks at Food Systems New England put together, with this reminding people that the food systems brings them joy and then allowing them to share that so that others can find that same kind of joy. I think sometimes we just miss that part, the joyful part of it, the happiness part of it, how exciting and fun food actually is.
I also want to interject. I took something a little bit different away from the storytelling too. I think it was in one of the sort of groups, the sit down chat groups that we kind of had, talking about kind of educating funders, and I thought that was really fascinating. Like the more that we have these conversations about how food is more than numbers, the more we can also convey that to our funders as well, because a lot of times funders traditionally are looking for those numbers, but to really understand community impact, you have to tell a story. And so that was something I took away as well.
Anyone else have anything they want to share before I move on to the next piece? All right, let's go back to share screen here. Oh, and here's a little bit of slide. I guess that other slide must have actually been Barbara's I stole. I thought it might have been storytelling one. But Nishkashika's. But I like this slide too. Thinking about the folks, David up in Maine, he shared this idea of like this Cobra effect, that if we measure things, sometimes we cause them to increase. He told this story about, in India, when they wanted to reduce cobras, they put a bounty on the head, and then people farmed cobras. And then when they stopped putting the bounty, they let them all go. And he shared this way of, by being measuring consistency of food and trying to find some balance in the gleaning world. And I thought that was such an interesting way of thinking about what we do. So let's move on to fundraising here. So there was two talks that fit into fundraising, and they both could have gone in storytelling, to be honest. This one that Portland Fruit Tree Project did, converting folks having joyful experiences with our team to donors, really could have fit in either of these groups. And yeah, I'm sorry, let's go back. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry. They shared this idea of like finding joy in everything and making things joyful and fun. And this ties into that what Barbara shared. How do they make their events more joyful? And they talked about this as they diversified their fundraising, but also explaining to funders that they were sharing joy and they were building community. This idea that they were moving towards a joyful shared economy, where people not only shared things with each other, but they shared joy with each other. And then the team there encouraged us to bring a gleaning mentality everywhere, to think about what things we could get for free and how do we find the things we need for both our fundraising world and our volunteer world, and all of those pieces. And then Lisa gave this presentation, Lisa from our board and from Kua Harvest, about building a winning grant proposal together. And she walked us through writing an AI proposal together. And one of the things I actually took from both her and Casey's conversation about working with the AI was to be specific and ask for exactly what we wanted. Casey talked about letting the AI know who we wanted it to act as and what we wanted it to do. Lisa talked about really making sure we fed it the information it needed to help, and continually going back to AI to work with it to get what we actually wanted in this editing process, and using AI as an editing partner as we work through here. Again, those were just two of many takeaways I could have took from both of those presentations or from the roundtable. I'm curious with you all, as you think about the fundraising piece of this symposium, were there any takeaways that you had coming out of that?
What I liked about the Portland Fruit Tree Project presentation was that she emphasized if something doesn't work, move on. And so it's not like we tend to get wedded to our programming. And I think they've got kind of a rapid prototyping mentality. It's like, try it. If it doesn't work, move on. Try something new, tweak it, take risks. And I love that presentation because it really shows the scrappiness and the kind of try anything mode that Portland Fruit Tree Project is in and does so well.
So many gleaners do.
Yeah.
Well, Kathy, it wasn't even like if something doesn't work, move on. It was like, hey, even if it works really well and you don't want to do it again,
right.
Move on. Or if you
That's
don't want to
right.
do it every year, you don't have to do it every year. And
That's right.
that seems like something so simple, but like reminding that you have that freedom to be like, no, we're not going to build a 600-foot charcuterie board every year. It was fun. It was great. And we can do it again, but we don't have to do it always.
Right.
Anyone else want to add anything to the fundraising piece? I think this is probably the first time we didn't do like a traditional grant writing or fundraising workshop at the symposium. I'm sure for some of you, you wish we would have. And I'm sure we will again in the future. It's maybe like this, taking the advice of Portland Fruit Tree Project here to say, we don't have to do the same things every year.
I did
But-
Catherine Kennedy's where we talked about fundraising, and it was, it was off the cuff in a good way, but something that came to mind were just donors I hadn't thought about before, like the idea of local banks, and that might be for like a popcorning conversation between Catherine and Kara on how like they fund their programs. So it was just nice to hear. I feel like we're always dipping into the same resources and now federal resources. Like for instance, we have a big USDA grant, but our city's giving it to us, even though the city's not getting the money. So so much extra paperwork to get the money, since it's like the city's got to cover their butts because they're not getting the USDA money, but then promise the recipients, so they're going through and maybe they can take some out of the police budget or something. But I'm just saying, yeah, it's just very interesting how much paperwork is usually involved with those big grants, and this is like triple because it's just being funneled in a really weird way. So not even looking forward for applying for those kind of grants in the future and dipping from different pools than we have in the past. That was something I found to be a good resource of knowledge. Yeah, small local banks, not credit unions, but small local banks.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's it, I'll run through the next couple, or the next one at least.
We will visit that topic at the August coffee chat.
So, the third group or small group that we did was some volunteer management workshops. This is again was 2 workshops and then a roundtable discussion. I guess I maybe have said this, but maybe I didn't, but those roundtable discussions came out directly out of feedback we received. And this whole structure came out of feedback we received after last year's symposium, where you all said, we want more time to think about issues that come up in these conversations. And in order to do that, we need, some downtime between or some time to just talk about topics. So we tried to lump topics together and then give some downtime. Um, I always would encourage you to step out in the hall and take downtime as well. But sometimes if you're like me, you need some like structured downtime in it as well. So that's why we did those small groups. And I hope we received pretty good feedback, but if you liked it or didn't like it, make sure you let us know. So these two on volunteer management was one about growing a program for all seasons on, the difference of volunteer options and showing appreciation. One of the things I took away from that was that you need different volunteer options and you need a real good way to show appreciation. This was shared by the folks at Food Forward in LA, and they talked about different ways that they allowed volunteers to engage. So it wasn't just like, hey, we have a volunteer option that's like you can come pick tomatoes or you can come pick kale. It was like we really want options that work for your level of commitment and the type of experience you want to get out of volunteering. If you don't want to, be in the backyard under a tree, you could volunteer at one of their farmers market rescues if you wanted to just come out every once in a while. Whenever it was available, they have an option for that. If you wanted to be more involved, they had options for that. I remember someone talking about this a minute ago in the popcorn of what they liked about the symposium. And here's just two examples of ways their volunteers can engage. General volunteers is like one-off. It happens when it happens. You don't, trading or time commitment, you just kind of get to jump in. Harvest leaders get to pick when they harvest. There's some, training process that happens and there's a commitment. And then the other one was strategic community engagements or private group gleans. Different types of gleans for different goals and reasons. And this was shared for the folks out at Rachel Table. Kara shared this. And she talked about how her gleans, they sort of have two types of gleans. One is the general open to the community volunteer gleans where you sign up online, you come out whenever you want. And others were these more structured, formatted gleans, and those had a set of goals for them. She wanted to build interfaith and intercultural community. So she focuses on recruiting they're a Jewish organization, but she recruits or focus on recruiting people from other denominations to participate in these. They often charge for these activities for when it's corporate or others, and so it becomes a sustainable funding. These events usually have snacks and they have other pieces in them. They're much more workload to put on, so that funding piece works in there. And it's long-term food systems engagement, so there's some training and education that goes along with these as well. So that was kind of the wrap of those two. And I'm curious if anyone had anything else they wanted to share about volunteer engagement that stood out for you.
This wasn't exactly about volunteers, but somebody was mentioning how to work with their interns and apprentices. I have to look through my notes to see who it was, and like just starting out like with a day where they do have like a whole one-on-one day with the intern and like talk about like what the expectations will be and what are some of like the learning opportunities that they'll have. Like that was helpful to me for like just establishing like a baseline of kind of understanding with your interns.
Well, there was so many workshops that I didn't watch yet, or didn't get included in this presentation who I did watch. You know, this was about half of the presentations at the symposium, so there are a ton of other great workshops, you know, in deep uh, um, dive into the gleaning operations of the folks in Spain. You know, Boston area gleaners took us on, you know, a track to how to grow. They sustainably grew their organization. Sarah from Harvest Against Hunger walked us through an update on the Washington Gleaning Network, and we learned about another food network that's I'm blanking on at the moment that's more geared towards general food rescue. We learned about Salesforce. There was so many great sessions. You know, I'm going to walk us shortly through our SARE session, just to remind you all, if you haven't participated. I know it may seem like we're beating a dead horse with this, but we really, really want to encourage participation here. We're looking to collect 3,000 data points over the next 2 years, so we need 1,500 to 2,000 this year. That's a lot of data points coming out of this project, so I'm going to continue to remind you all about that. So I'll walk through SARE, and then I'm going to ask for anything you guys want us to do differently next year, or hope we don't do that you experience this year. Again, but what sort of feedback would you give us is the last sort of piece here. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to think about that while I just walk you quickly through the SARE presentation, which was a 2-hour block where we got to learn again from Lisa Johnson about the problems of food waste. And I think all of us know that, but the lack of measurements in that space, and she really articulated for us why measurement was important and why we've embarked on this. And we think it's really important here at Augo to tell the story of gleaning. You know, this census and the SARE go hand in hand in our own efforts to storytell. You know, when you come to the symposium next year, you're going to hear everything we learned from the census. I mean, you're going to begin to hear about the real scale of the problem, but we're not going to be able to tell that full story without gathering this SARE data. You know, so we're trying to provide a more accurate estimate of what's happening, so that we can better help gleaning organizations figure out what their role is on addressing on-farm food loss and backyard food waste. You know, gathering some data on urban fruit tree waste that doesn't exist at all. You know, providing a way to get this data back to farmers so we can support both hunger relief and farmers in this work. So we really hope that can happen, but it doesn't happen without your participation. So here's how you participate. You make sure your Argos membership's up to date. If you can't afford membership, reach out. I've often said this membership just shows our funders and supporters you care about the work we're doing. We really have tried to keep the fees very, very minimal, and we're happy to scholarship you in if that fee's a problem. We just want to be able to show our funders who cares about the work that Augo is doing. So join as a member if you're not. Complete the census. That includes both the questionnaire and the interview. It's a really great chance to talk and share your concerns about what's going on in the gleaning world. The interview is, and you can hear what's working for others. It often turns into not just us gathering information, but us sharing resources with you all. And then watch the training or the session that happened at the symposium. If you already watched that piece is done. And then you're going to submit your information and receive stipends for it. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. What do you all hope that we will do different at next year's symposium, or what didn't you like this year? What advice would you give us as we're already starting planning 2026? So any advice you want to give us now at this moment?
So I know I said I really enjoyed everything about the symposium. I really loved the opportunity to do those kind of like what did you call them? Like sort of breakout rooms, but in person. Getting a chance to chat with each other was massively awesome. And I think finding ways that we can have kind of interactive workshops and things in the future would be a really cool thing.
I'll make a comment. Sean, you're already planning, and Kathy planning, and all of us planning for next year's symposium by the nature of your question. So I just throw this out very generally as I see it right now. We're in a very difficult time here in the country for many, many issues. One of which is USDA grants, food. So I'm trying to envision an opportunity in all of that. And we all, I think, would benefit by trying to find a little bit of lemonade in this lemon. And what comes to mind is that there happens to be a perhaps an unusual director of health services in this country right now that has a lot of unusual ideas. But one of his ideas is health and nutrition. And perhaps paying attention as this year evolves with what's coming out of Washington regarding focusing on health and nutrition will identify opportunities for us to provide feedback in different ways that would benefit our entire mission. So instead of looking like just at the dark side, say, okay, it's real dark in there, but there's a couple of bright lights, and perhaps letting this evolve as things move along, and then contributing perhaps to a session a year from now, which is still, in the current administrative framework. I don't know what it's going to be like, but we may find we have a whole lot of positive suggestions to make, and we may even be more informed on how to do that effectively, because storytelling, AI, grants, we have a lot of resources, I think, that might be able to be brought to bear, looking collectively as our own power to try to feed the system that's being given to us. If that makes any sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Barbara, go ahead.
So inspired again. Food is health, food is nutrition, food is life, food is celebratory and holidays, food is culture, food is family. Man, we've got a lot to work with. And I was thinking about the for-profit businesses that should be supporting our work. And I would really like to go out to some of those distribution, non-local food people that, have the money to invest in community and invest in us and invest in our symposium. So I think we should go after them.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, and as Kathy dropped in the chat, we are looking for a host in the Sun Belt. So if you happen to be in the southern United States, but not on the East Coast, we are definitely looking for hosts there. In the middle of the country, we're also looking for hosts. So some of you have gotten targeted emails from us, but keep that in mind if you happen to live in one of those places.
What about Uproot?
Yeah, we're definitely keeping them in mind. So
okay.
Well, I'm going to leave you all with the same piece of advice that I left at the symposium. And as we close the symposium, I employed people to go out and to grow the movement in their communities, to grow the gleaning movement and to be growers. And I spoke about the difference between growing and building, and how with building, we know the end result. We know what it's going to look like. We have plans in front of us often. We know exactly where the pieces need to go in building. And if we're a good builder, things look the same no matter where we build them or how we built them, or if it's raining or snowing. But growing's different. Many of us have been growers in our lives. Maybe we've been farmers or that type of growers, or we've grown something. But growing requires a lot of faith. It requires a lot of trust in others. And it requires us to let go of control. This is one of the the tenets of my belief on how networks work is that they're trust without control. And we need that in our communities to grow. You know, we can plant the seeds, we can nourish those seeds, but what the end growth looks like is out of our control in many aspects. You know, and so I encourage us to go out and to grow a movement. These are incredibly crazy times we live in. You know, there's climate change happening all around us. There's political instability. There's fracturing of neighborhoods and communities, and all these things are happening, and we don't necessarily know what tomorrow will need or will bring. But when we grow something, we don't have to know that. We plant the seeds of the things we want, we nourish them in the way we want them to be, and we grow a community. And if we're ever going to do anything to address the incredible magnitude of on-farm food waste, the billions and billions of tons of food that is lost on farms and does not go to our hungry community members, we will never do that with gleaning organizations alone. It's impossible. We need to grow our communities to address this problem. We need to inspire others to see the abundance all around us and to address it on their own. You know, we need millions of folks who see food everywhere, who see the potential of our farmland and our urban landscapes to feed and nourish their communities. So I encourage all of you, as we head into this super busy gleaning season, to stop for a moment and consider what you truly want to create and what you truly want to grow, and put the energy and effort into planting that. Stop for a moment and maybe harvest a few less pounds of tomatoes to explain the importance of food waste reduction, and explain the importance of feeding our community, and explain the issues that happen around us to our community members. You know, we are uniquely positioned as gleaners to do that. Hundreds of thousands of everyday individuals who maybe only think about food that one time when they're in the field with us pass through our organization. And we can grow them into champions for our work. And I hope all of you go out and do that. You take what you learned in the symposium, you take what you learned about stopping and building community from the symposium, and you do that in your own community. So that's my challenge to all of you as we leave this and we leave the symposium. Brandis, I see your hands up. I'll let you close us out then.
I just wanted to say that I have not seen our group photo in the Google pictures, so nothing big.
I would get it in there. I think it went up on our Instagram. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, this is my plug to get you to follow us on Instagram as well.
Okay.
So, but I would get it up there. Thanks for the reminder.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna try to keep coming if this is Thursday.
All right. Thank you all for all that you do. Take care.
Bye. Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Casey.
Bye-bye, Barbara.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Good inspiration.
Bye, all.
Good inspiration's hard to find too.
Thanks, Barbara.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, Gina.
All right, Tom, unless you have some last thought for us, we're going to let you go. Take care.
Okay, looks like he's distracted. Okay.